So, you want to make a language. That's cool, me too. Languages need words, right? So, I'll just string some sounds together that conform to my phonotactics and apply some meaning to them. We can take gava and say that this means to write. And that's it. Sounds plus meaning equals a word. And Bob's your uncle. Yet, something doesn't feel quite right. True, I now have a word for to write, but bereft of history, it feels hollow. Believe it or not, when I was young and naive, I believed that words could be coined willy-nilly, ex nihilo, and that I didn't need to bother with thinking about culture, a notoriously amorphous concept that I have no desire to grapple with. In the end, I ended up with a hollow lexicon. Because without culture, material or immaterial, languages feel less cohesive, less alive, less human. And this might not be a concern for you if your language is for spacefaring, sentient flatulence, but my Conlang is for humans. Let's start again. I want a word for to write. This presupposes my people have writing, i.e. graphic representation of language, so that takes care of that question. But it asks the question, what is the writing like? I really like the asth of runes and cuneiform. So to start with, the only design specification I'll set out for my con culture's mode of writing, also known as a script, is that it uses only straight lines. Next questions. What is the script drawn on, and what is it drawn with? Well, straight lines suppose a material like wood, stone, or clay, because leaves, paper, or papyrus are likely to tear from the straight lines. I'm placing my culture way back when, so no fancy technology like paper or ink or smartphones. Wood's a nice medium, and the locals can cut my their straight lines using primitive knives. They can even cut straight onto trees if they like, which they do because I'm their god and I say so. Thus, maybe the old word gava means to notch, and only after 1,000 years of carving phrases onto trees like watch out for this pesky ravine and discount snake oil sold here does to notch semantically drift into the more general meaning of to write. And that's it. Sounds plus meaning plus history plus semantic drift equals a word. And Robert's your father's brother. Yet. Didn't we say my con people like to carve directly onto trees because I'm their god and I said so? Yeah, we did. This presupposes they live somewhere with lots of trees, like a woods, or a forest, or Siberia. I'll plunk them down right about here. But don't worry, this is a parallel Earth from a parallel dimension. It's exactly like our humble planet in our humble dimension, except where my imagination says otherwise. Anyhow, last time I checked, Siberia was in the northern hemisphere. This planet we call our home has a coy axial tilt of 23 degrees, so in the northern hemisphere we see the sun move east to west while staying in the southern half of the sky. If I'm chilling in the endless Siberian larch forest and want to carve on a tree or series of trees such that my message is lit with the passage of the sun, then I'll want to carve on the south-facing bark of those trees. As the sun moves east to west, it will illuminate the east side of the tree first and the west side last. Thus, facing the tree, i.e. with me facing north, I will carve right to left. This sun bark notching becomes the norm, and my writing direction is now set from right to left, which is pretty neat. Yet, words don't tend to exist alone, and may be keen to hook up with some derivational morphology. Let's look at two particular derivations of my proto-lang. The first makes a human agent out of a verb. Here, gava, to notch, has become gavo, meaning someone who notches, or a notcher. But most of what was notched in yonder times was warnings, so gavo starts to mean someone who gives warnings. To give a warning, you need to be on the lookout, and if you're on the lookout, you're probably protecting something. Throw in a dash of diachronic sound change, and voila, we end up with the modern word gavo, meaning guardian or protector. The other particular derivation we'll look at makes a human patient of a verb. Here, yep, go, would mean someone who was notched, or a notchee. Now, I'm sure we can agree that putting notches in human flesh is pretty barbaric. So yep, go means someone whose image is notched, like onto a tree. Returning to the idea that most of what was notched in yonder times was warnings, yep, go would mean someone you need to warn others about, like if in the general vicinity there were violent cannibals or your mother-in-law. Over time, the word becomes semantically broadened to refer to any unsavoury individual. Throw in a dollop of diachronic sound change, and voila, we end up with the modern word yapku, meaning a bad person. You might notice this word bears an uncanny resemblance to the name of a character from Shakespeare's Othello, namely Iago. This is not a coincidence. And that's it. Sounds, plus meaning, plus history, plus semantic drift, plus derivation equals words. And the modern name of Cro Thibertas is your grandfather's son, but not your father. And as always, don't like and don't subscribe.